Hello and welcome. So I have some helpful chess tips for you today. I'm going to play an 1800 rated holiday bot here. Let's begin. The bot has moved queen pawn to d4, taking a share of the center. What do we want to do against this holiday bot? All right, I'm going to develop my knight and see where they go from here. Okay. Now, since we're talking about helpful chess tips, a great tip, as always, is to control the center of the board. These pawns are doing a good job of that. And now I'm trying to fight in the middle of the board or fight for the central squares by, developing a knight, helping to take control. Okay, now I'm going to try and get my king castled quickly, and that's also a good strategy. So I go here. Now I'm ready to get my king castled to safety. Why is that a good strategy? Because in the middle, your king can be attacked from three different directions. But once you castle, well, then you can only be attacked, from two directions. Here, or here where this queen has lined up on this pawn. And another great tip is after an opponent makes a move, try and ask yourself, why did they make that move? What is the meaning behind that move? Well, now we have a queen and bishop lined up here. So I need to do something. I'm going to push this pawn up and try and prevent that attack. And another good strategy is to move your pieces in the opening off the back rank. And so generally you want to move knights before bishops because then you have more time. More time to see where the bishops will be placed, where is best to place those bishops. So I could attack this bishop with my knight, maybe. Generally, you don't want to move a piece twice in the opening, though. Well, do I push forward here? Then we have 1, 2, 3 attackers. I have 1, 2, 3 defenders. So that could be a possibility. But then I have to watch out. It could open up the line of fire on this diagonal here with the queen. Okay. I think I may just this is kind of a tricky little setup. So I think I'm going to counterattack my opponent's queen. That way, if he captures, then I can recapture and it opens up the H file. Okay. Well, now we have an attack on my bishop. My opponent's moved a piece twice in the opening, and generally you don't want to do that because that gives me time to develop. I could attack the bishop possibly. So that's an option. Now, if I trade off queens, that leaves my opponent with doubled pawns here. But also the possibility of attacking this pawn here. Okay. I could just attack the bishop. All right, so tips. Control the center. That's a great chess tip. Get your pieces off the back rank as fast as possible. Get the rooks connected and move them behind pawns that you plan to trade off, behind pawns that you plan to push forward, or onto open or half open files, because it just gives the bishops more mobility. Okay. I could attack here. So maybe I will do that. Because then that'll allow me... Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and attack that bishop. It allows me to get my other bishop out. Okay, so we have a capture there. I'm going to go ahead, knock out the queen, and then take the bishop. So now I'm targeting this pawn. Okay, the pawn is now protected. Let's see. I need to develop a piece. My opponent has 2 pieces developed. I only have 1. Well, I am castled. So... All right. Well, I think I'm going to just develop my knight up. It is blocking my bishop, but I might have the chance of pushing this pawn forward. So I may do that. But now, let's do that. We'll try and open things up. Open up this diagonal. Oh, and he closes it down. Shuts down the diagonal. All right, well, let's keep that diagonal shut down. Oh, if we do that, though, the knight could jump in here into the position. Let's just go ahead and do it. We'll keep things closed. All right, now we can drop back, defending this pawn. Okay. Well, we could go ahead and attack, try and get our bishop developed. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to attack the knight, try and get my bishop developed. Okay, we have that maneuver. Okay, this allows me to develop my other bishop, so that's good. I can get that bishop developed. You know, and at the same time guard that square from the knight pressing forward. Okay, so now do we gain space here? I think so. We're going to push forward, gain some space. We'll go ahead and guard there. Now my opponent is just kind of, meandering back and forth. Probably should bring my king up. So we'll go ahead and do that. It's always good. A good tip is to bring your king forward. We'll go there, chasing. the knight. Okay, now a good strategy would be to get rid of my dark squared bishop, since it is kind of blocked in by my own pawns. So, what can we do? All right, maybe I could get this rook off of the diagonal as well. And so that's a good strategy. A good tip is when there are pieces lined up, a less valuable piece lined up on your more powerful or more valuable piece, try and get that rook out of the line of fire. Even though there's a knight and a pawn in the way, you never know when things could open up. So I have to watch out though. If I move this, the rook will be unprotected, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay. I need to be able to bring this other pawn up. So I think I have to move my knight out of the way here. Oh, but I have to be able to capture towards the center. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, we have an attack. I'm going to drop back with this bishop and guard the pawn. Okay. Well, now we can capture and open things up a little bit for our bishops. So that's usually not a bad thing to do. Now what? Well, I need to get that knight out of the way. Maybe we develop here. Or should I capture? I don't want opposite colored bishops necessarily. If I go here, does that do anything though? If we bring that up, that covers this square. I don't want this knight jumping into my position here. So, what can we do? We could add pressure to this maybe. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. All right, now we can press forward here. And it'll keep that knight out of our position. So I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay. Now we can bring this other bishop into the action. Okay, should we capture here? All right, why not? We'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll try and push forward here. All right, we could pin the knight. But I think first, pin the knight to his rook, but I think we have to check first. We at least grab the 7th rank. All right. Now, do we attack the knight? Maybe that's a better move, to go ahead and attack that knight. If we attack the knight here, the rook could defend it, but then we could bring up the bishop to add more pressure. If this knight moves, we can start picking off pawns here. All right, let's add some pressure. All right. I don't know. This will let him go into... I don't know if I like this. Because now this is under attack. And that's not looking too good. Maybe I messed up here. Okay, this was a pretty tough game. I probably should have traded off the rooks. Now I'm kind of in trouble because this pawn is under attack. All right, but this is a 1800 bot, so it's playing pretty solid. So that is going to come under attack. Now what? What can we do? Well, I don't know. It's not looking too good now. Because if this falls, then he can go after this. I need to go after that. I mean, I could attack his knight, but then he'll just protect it with his king. So another good chess tip is not to let your opponent's rook infiltrate into your position without having it covered. Yeah, this weak pawn is going to be a problem. Well, what can I do here? I can try and swing back over here with my bishop. Man. All right, let's just create a threat. If you can ignore your opponent and create a counter threat. And try and get rid of pawns. That's usually a good idea. So I'm going to go after this pawn. Yeah, it's not looking too good. So now he has this passed pawn, and that is going to be a big problem here. Okay, yeah, I think I'm pretty much lost now. I should get behind this, but then his king can attack me. Um, mm. And I need to centralize, so I'm going to go there, try and centralize. Okay. Now I can go after that. But he's protecting. What else do we have available? Need to get this king into the action, that's for sure. Okay, I guess we can protect the pawn. It's not looking too good here. I need to block this passed pawn that he has. So I guess I have to go that way. Okay. Well, maybe I can knock some things out. Go after, we have a check. Okay. Tricky, tricky. Do I push here, try to get this pawn moving? That's an option. I push here. He captures. So if we look at the position, I'm behind. When you're behind, a good tip is to trade off pieces. Excuse me, I take that back. If you're behind, you want to trade off pawns. If you're ahead, you want to trade off pieces. So my opponent should want me to trade off more pieces and use the extra pawns to advantage. I need to trade off pawns. So maybe I can knock this out. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go here and attack. Okay. So we do that. Great. Now it left this pawn protected, and I needed to get rid of that. And now they just have this. Okay, that didn't help me so much. All right. Yeah, I think I'm pretty much lost now. Okay, what else can we do? Yeah, the tips here would be to trade off pawns, but now I'm in trouble since I can't pick this pawn off. The base of the pawn chain is where you want to go, or what you want to go after. Um, all right. What do I have? What can I play against my opponent here? Because now this pawn is just going to start running down the board. All right, guess we'll move the king up into the action, help blockade that pawn. If I go here and the pawn... Do I go here? Maybe. Now what? Okay. Well, now I can get a pawn back, so that's good. All right. Well, we'll go there, attacking the pawn. Okay, well, it looks like I turned this game around. Do we keep the king away from our pawn? Okay, well, the game should be a draw now, but I just have to be careful about how I go about it. I mean, I guess I could move over here and try and escort my pawn up the board. So let's try that. So we're escorting our pawn up the board. Well, now we can just pick off. I mean, we could go for a draw by going here and then grabbing that pawn. So that's a possibility. All right, I'll play it safe. You know, that way the game doesn't have to drag out, or this video doesn't have to drag out too long. We'll go ahead and go there. Okay, now and a good tip in an endgame like this is to use your rook to cut off the opponent's king to keep it away from your pawn. But if I go here, well, no, they could capture me. But then I could recapture. I mean, they could capture my pawn. So I'm going to go there to cut the king off. Okay, and now I'm going to go here to get closer to the opponent's king and keep them away. All right. So now what do we do? Well, we might as well. A good tip in an endgame like this is to keep your rook away from the king as far as possible. Now we've cut the king off, so it can't help go after this pawn. We could just go here, threaten to, be able to block. All right, so now we can move up here. All right. Well, we can start moving our pawn now. So we'll just push that up the board further here. Okay, so now we're just going to keep pushing that pawn up the board. And we should be able to win the game now, I think. All right, we have to be careful here. Well, now we can just go here. And yeah, we have a win. All right, yeah, I guess I was able to turn this around. So now we have a one end game with the rook, and I'll show you how to win for the beginners out there. If there's any beginners watching, you have to use your king and rook together. So I'll start just moving up here, and then we're going to box the king in with our rook. So we have a box here, and here we're going to move the rook up and make this box smaller. Now the box is here and here. And so we can just keep making that box smaller and smaller till we trap the king on the edge of the board. Now here we don't want to go here, of course, or the rook will be captured. So we have to bring the king up closer to the opponent's king. And we can make the box smaller here. So now we have a smaller and smaller box. All right, so we'll just keep closing in the box around our opponent. But we have to make sure the king stays next to the rook to help guard it. Okay, now if we went here, the king would be able to escape. So we're just going to move our king closer, grab the opposition, and force the king into the corner. So we'll make the box smaller. And now, let's see. Here we might have to waste a move to get the king back on the edge of the board. So we're going to go back and make the box smaller. So now the king can only move back and forth between these two squares here. So what we are going to do is just maneuver our king around to here and force the king into the corner and deliver the mate. All right, well, it took me long enough, 87 moves, but we got the win. I'll do a quick game review because I'm kind of curious to see what I messed up there. I think the computer had the chance to win for sure. Okay, it's taking a little bit. Yeah, look at this. So it looks like the game was even. I had a little bit of an advantage. I was kind of, doing pretty good here. And then the computer came back and evened it up. And then I was even behind. Before the computer just let me make a comeback. All right, computer played at 84.2% accuracy. I played at 88.7. It says that the computer played at a 2250 level and I played at a 2350 level. All right. Well, one blunder by the computer. The computer had 3 mistakes. I had 2. And so I had 4 great moves. The computer had 2. We'll do a quick review and watch it blast through these moves. If you're curious, this is supposed to be about tips. So what can we learn from this position? Well, a good tip is to get your king castled quickly, castle early and often, because it's harder to get to a king that after it's been castled and it's in the corner here. If you leave your king stuck in the center of the board and the center opens up, well then you can be in trouble. So another good strategy is control the center. You can do that by placing pawns in the center here that control squares, or you can place a bishop or other piece kind of off to the side that's attacking central squares here. Okay, what happened next? It's kind of blasting through these moves. It really liked this move. It says it's a great move, but a good tip is to keep your bishop pair. So I move this bishop back to guard this pawn, of course, and I want to also keep my bishop pair. My opponent does not have the bishop pair any longer, so if you can get rid of your opponent's bishop pair, that's a good tip. But if your opponent has the bishop pair, you should try and knock that bishop pair out. So I have an advantage with this extra dark squared bishop. If my opponent can get rid of that bishop, it kind of evens things up a little bit more. All right, so the game continues with some maneuvering here. The rooks are doubling up on a file that I intend to open if I can. So here, the computer says this is a mistake, pushing this f4 pawn. It misses an opportunity to centralize the knight. So they're saying it's better to bring this knight back to the center here, because a knight on the rim can be dim. And why? Because it doesn't control as many squares on the edge of the board. If you bring the knight in towards the center here to c3, it would control valuable central squares, and it has more mobility, more squares to move to. All right. So I capture, says that's a great move. If you have a bishop and the board is kind of closed, you want to open things up to give your bishops more room to maneuver. So capture, recapture, and now this is a mistake. Apparently it would have been better to jump up to g4. So once again, a good example of a knight on the rim being dim. If I would have jumped to g4, I maybe have a possibility to jump into e3 into my opponent's position, attacking the defensive bishop. Also from e3, maybe in the future I could jump over here maybe and attack this rook in the edge. But anyway, in the game, we have another mistake by the computer. The computer placed the rook on the D file where this pawn has been pushed forward, but apparently it would have been better to develop the bishop forward and attack my knight Oh, yes, that would have been a good move because I can't even move. They would have been able to capture my knight, break up my pawns on the king side. Huh. Yeah, that would have definitely been a good option. All right, so I decided to give up my bishop pair and then open things up with my doubled rooks here on the A file. And black has about a pawn and a half advantage, even though material's even at the moment. So the game continues with. All right, so this was a mistake. I should have immediately gone after this pawn here. The bishop would have had to protect the pawn. All right. So that was a better way to retreat my rook, apparently, is go after this pawn. The bishop would have to protect that pawn. But then what do I do? Maybe start maneuvering my knight. Is there a way the knight can add pressure to that? No, but I could go here, threaten a fork, and the bishop would be stuck on guard duty back there. All right, so in the game, we have a defensive move of this knight. I add more pressure. The knight has to retreat. And now, what is best here? All right. Yeah, I don't know. I felt like I got lucky because here white is ahead now by half a pawn equivalent. So I'm able to trade off material. Now the game is pretty much even, but my opponent didn't play the end game very well. So it looks like this was the big blunder of the game. And after this, it's it's not looking too good. I can pick off this pawn, and then I have this passed pawn here. So after that, yeah, it looks like I would just be winning from this point on. And you know the rest. I was able to that's interesting. They think it would have been better to block with the rook. But yeah, you get the idea. My opponent had to give up his rook for the queen that I promoted, or the pawn that I promoted to a queen, and then I just won in the end game. But if we go back a little bit, let me go back to here, or maybe a little bit further. What can we learn from this? So that was a mistake. Apparently, I should have gotten rid of that bishop. And that would have been a better move because here, if I take out the bishop, the king will be forced to capture, pulling the king to the back rank. Then I could, well, I don't know. That's kind of tricky. So let's put on the computer analysis. So they're saying I should take. King will be, forced to recapture, of course. And then, oh, they actually like G4 here, which I wouldn't have thought about. That prevents this pawn from pushing forward, or I can capture it. Also, there's a threat of going here, getting behind the passed pawn. All right. They recommend rook to f7 check. What if my opponent immediately targets the pawn, though? I mean, I guess I could pick off this pawn. But the game would be even from here. So back to what happened in the game. Uh, we have that. And then king up to d6 is the best move. And that is not best. Rook to g4 would be better. Huh. Yeah, because that would just guard this. It would keep this guarded right here. So rook to g4. And then now they recommend that I play what? Rook to e5. And, or no, sorry. Rook to c2. Lining up on the king. But then rook to g6 check. Anyway, this seems like, I don't know, a lot more difficult because I think I could have been in trouble here because the pawn is protected by the rook and the bishop. And then this pawn can start running. So that's going to be an issue. And this passed pawn. So I think I got a little bit lucky in that game. All right. Feel free to leave any comments. Like and subscribe to support the channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching and have a super chess day.